My Life and Ethiopia's Progress, the Autobiography of Emperor Haile Selassie I, Chapter 5, From the time of my marriage up to my appointment as Crown Prince and the Regent Plenipotentiary. From the time of my marriage up to my appointment as Crown Prince and Regent Plenipotentiary, 1911-1916. When I had been governor of Hara and its entire province for about a year, stabilizing without mishap the life of peasants and soldiers, of government and of all else necessary for administration, it was decided by my wish and by that of my relations that I should marry, I was in my 20th year at the time, Waziri Manen, now Empress, the granddaughter of Negus Michael. We were married by church ceremony on 23rd Haile, 1903, which is 31st of July, 1911. Her character is such that, apart from goodness, there is no evil or malice in her. Ever since we were married, we lived together, by virtue of her being fertile, in one family, sharing joy as well as sadness. In saying that we lived together sharing joy as well as sadness, I cannot omit writing about the first great sadness as follows. We were informed at Hara of the death in 1907, which is 1914-1915, of Ras Haile Mariam, Waziri Manen's younger brother. When their mother, Waziri Sehen, returned from Wolo to Addis Ababa, it was decided that, because of her brother's death, Waziri Manen should go to Addis Ababa for the joint mourning, and consequently she set out from Hara on Monday, the 30th of Genbot, which is the 7th of June 1915. Having accompanied her as far as Haramaya, we camped by the shore of Lake Haramaya, as we, that is the Jasma Tafari, wished to return to Harar. In the past, there was a boat in which foreigners living at Hara and Dayadawa used to sometimes enter Lake Haramaya for recreation. We therefore left the tent at 9 o'clock, which is 3 p.m., and went to the lake. There were 10 people who boarded the boat with us to relax on the lake. After we had embarked, we passed towards the center and eventually crossed to the other side. Having stayed a little while on the opposite shore, we entered the boat once again to return to our camp. But the boat was rather old. As we reached the middle of the lake, it was holed and water began to enter. As the people in the boat scooped out the water with their hats, it did not diminish when they poured it out. Once we became convinced of the fact that the boat was leaking, it was impossible to cross with us inside it, and that we were all of us sinking with the boat. We began to swim with great difficulty. But as the lake was wide and as it was impossible to cross it by swimming, the following 7 men became exhausted and drowned: Abba Tasfa, Kagnazmach Gabra Wald, Atu Ayala Siyum, Kedana Miriam Zawal, Asamre, Abba Samuel Paulos. But I and the Zajmach Haile Selassie were going under and coming up again. The Judge Abria's servant helped me. As the officers and men who were watching this standing by the shore of the lake became convinced of the shipwreck, all those able to swim threw themselves into the lake, and as they reached us, we emerged, having only just escaped from death. As we got out, our soul had barely been prevented from getting separated from our body, but we were unable to recognize anyone or to speak. It so happened that by chance, Dr. Zervos, a Greek who had earlier been a physician, was there at that time, and he treated me with medicines as far as possible, and little by little I was able to recognize people's outline. On the morrow, they carried me on a stretcher to Amaressa, and from Amaressa took me down to Harar, and on the 12th day, being quite well again, I went up to the church of St. Michael and gave thanks to God. Waziri Manen, being shocked on account of my accident, abandoned her journey to Addis Ababa and returned to Harar.